Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. You often read news reports about trying to win the lottery, how useless it is. It's like flushing money down the toilet. But there's one guy, his name is Richard Lustig, and he doesn't agree. Despite odds of 175 million to 1, Lustig has won the lottery 7 times, and he claims he's won over $1 million so far. When you hear the repeated success of Lustig, it's easy to miss the subtext in all of those wins. The first point of the subtext is that he has been playing the lottery since 1992. That's well over 25 years. Plus, he has a strategy. He goes for the smaller prizes like the $100,000 lotteries and completely avoids the $40 million jackpots. Are you going after the $40 million jackpots in your business? You know what I mean, right? Let's say you managed to break from a job. You had a job, now you're in your own business. That move, wonderful as it is, hasn't brought you a whole lot of relief because you still have to commute. You still have to go to these meetings. You have to sit in these inane situations with clients. And now you're keen on hitting the jackpot. Well, what is this jackpot? You want to reduce or you want to eliminate that commute completely, don't you? And that's a plan, that's a perfect plan, but that's not what a gambling man would do. A gambling man would reduce their odds of losing. Instead of 5 days of commuting, maybe you can whittle it down to 4. 4 may not sound like much until you've got it into the percentages. If you just manage to do that, go from 5 days of commuting to 4, now you've got 20% more home time, more time to be with the kids, more time to be with yourself maybe. In the months that follow, if you can reduce that by another day, that's another 20%. So now you have 40% over the start of the year. And this is the kind of phenomenon that plays out when it comes to earning revenue online. Let's say you're earning $23 online. What next? Oh, that's easy. Most people would like to go from 23 to 200,023. It sounds bizarre right now when I'm saying it. No one in their right mind is likely to achieve so much of a monetary gain so quickly. Even so, it's like playing the lottery, isn't it? You see others playing, they seem to be winning. Surely you have the same odds as well. In our world, your world, we're inundated with success stories. Everyone is making more money than you. Everyone is spending more time on vacation. And everyone seems to be winning the lottery except for you. It's not like there's any shortage of avenues either. Some make their fortunes via podcasting, others on YouTube, the third through some SaaS, software as a solution. We all have this multi-pronged attack. All these different types of media that will make us our fame and our fortune. And we're clear everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is doing just fine. But a gambling man like Lustig might tell you a different story. He spent the past 25 years hacking away at that lottery. He picked the smaller wins because the odds are so much better. It's all about structural change, making sure that he gets ahead bit by bit. And to be fair, his gains are pretty average by a wage standard. By his own admission, he's won a little over $1 million over 25 years. That's a pretty modest $40,000 per year. You can easily beat those odds in your own business, but your goals must be structural. I guess it's time for an example, right? When we bought our first house in New Zealand, it was priced at $230,000. And to our good fortune, we ran into this book by Anita Bell, and it talked about how to whittle down your mortgage in a few years. Now, in New Zealand, it pays to wipe out the mortgage quickly. Our expenses at that point in time, barring educational expenses, was about $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And that included the mortgage. So we set about trying to turn that mortgage into a big, fat zero. In the first 5 years itself, we bought 3 houses in Auckland, and that totaled over $1 million. In 10 years, we paid off every last cent on those loans. Strategically, we went about it, and it took about 10 years to pay back those loans. If you ran into someone and they said, hey, we can pay those loans off in 6 months. What about 9 months? Well, that sounds bizarre, doesn't it? 10 years seems pretty quick by any standards, but we learned what we had to do. We went about it systematically. It was done in 10 years. And we applied the same rigor to our business. In the year 2000, the business was just a website. It just had a dozen articles. No one bought anything. Hardly anyone read any much of anything. We simply buckled down. We went for dozens of meetings with clients. And out of those dozens, sometimes hundreds of meetings, we managed to get ourselves our first client. And this was a sofa store. The second client was a law firm. The third was a division of QuickBooks. We paid the mortgage, we budgeted our expenses, and the only big blowout was education. I wanted to buy everything in sight. I bought a ton of stuff online. And we both read through them. We listened endlessly to workshops, to marketing material, even the stuff that was really tedious to listen to. It took a while for it to happen. The first international workshop we had was in 2004, but that was after we had done a ton of speaking sessions in little places all around New Zealand. And when I say speaking sessions, you're probably thinking of some paid session. This wasn't a paid session. These are little sales meetings, little events where people meet for networking. Sometimes it's 7 in the morning, sometimes it's 7 in the evening. They're eating their food, they're barely listening to you, but you're getting that practice. You're putting in those hours of practice and getting used to what you have to say. All of this is happening at what you would call a snail's pace. But we didn't have that sight on the lottery. We had this sight on how we can go progressively from one stage to another. And then by 2006, we had our first really big ticket item. We decided to do the Protégé sessions. So the Protégé sessions were a year-long session. Clients paid us a substantial sum, and that's when we seemed to be going somewhere. And this kind of step-by-step logic, it fits in completely with Good to Great. Now, Good to Great is a book by Jim Collins, and his book is sold now over 3 million copies. And in that book, Collins talks about the egg and the chicken. He says, if you look at an egg before it hatches, it looks like nothing's happened. Then the chicken jumps out. And Fortune magazine comes running in, or Fast Company comes in, and they say, revolution at egg, transformation to chicken. Let's do an interview with the CEO of egg. But if you ask what it looks like from the chicken's point of view, there was a lot going on inside the egg before this one step happened. And you didn't know what was happening, what led to that process where the chicken jumped out of the egg. But we know what leads up to that chicken moment. It's structural change. It's bit by bit. Whether you're aiming to win the lottery or start up a business, Your job is to go about the steps systematically. And when you go on the internet today, when you open up your email, you'll probably get 20 emails telling you that you could become a millionaire overnight. People will tell you, I can make you rich. People will tell you, I can make you famous. People will tell you all kinds of nonsense. And it's very hard to fob that off. It always seems like they're winning the lottery. It always seems that you could become a millionaire. And there are exceptions. But by and large, it's the gentle progress that makes all the difference. Progress like commuting for just 4 days instead of 5, getting one strategic alliance per month, taking in one medium that is like podcasting or Instagram and working it day after day for the next few months, weeks, and yes, years. All those stories about how you can double and treble your income, they're probably true. And they probably aren't at odds with 175 million to 1. However, the structural way is better. With tiny changes, you can move ahead. You can slowly but surely get your commute down to zero, your bank balance to a healthy state. You can pay off that mortgage in style. If you want to become an overnight success, you'll need to slow down a bit. You'll need to work with structure. The odds are a lot better, I can assure you. And this is the piece that I wrote in 5000 BC. And as you probably know, 5000 BC is our membership site. And so we have this ongoing discussion, at which point someone jumped in and said, would you say that if you put in 3 to 4 years of free time and built up that trust, that awareness, the money will start to snowball after that? And I smiled when I read snowball. I'm not sure about snowball. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying on average, a business is like a child. It needs to take its time. It needs to grow. Can there be exceptions to this rule? Of course. Fast growth is possible, but there is a price to pay. I have a few friends in the restaurant business. One of them had stents put in his heart last year. Another had blood pressure so high, he had to take medication for almost 9 months. He's still recovering. They've both opened multiple restaurants. They're both successful by the world's standards. Online, I've seen people who present a very successful picture, but only when they're on stage. Only when they're in the spotlight. Offline, on chat, in the corridor, at conferences, the story becomes very real. It's about how they wish they could travel less, how they could be at home more often, how they get very little sleep, how they're a bit stressed out. That story changes. You get to keep that super growth, but, there is a price to pay. When I joined advertising, my boss, he wasn't my direct boss because I was in copywriting and the other person was in graphic design. So he was the art director. I was around at about 7:30 at night, and I think I've told you this story before, but he told me go home. And I said, look, I'm just 20 years old. I don't have anything to go home to. I don't have any family, nothing. And he goes, no. Go home. I'm divorced for that reason. I made this a habit when I was younger. I stayed late. I worked extra. I did all this stuff. This is why I'm here at 7:30. Go home. Now be aware that this podcast is not about being down and boring. You need to aspire to fame and riches. However, try and move slightly ahead of where you are. So let's say you're getting 4 weeks off in a year. Could you get 5 weeks off instead? You're earning $55,000 in a year. Could you earn $60,000 or $65,000? Instead of going for the big shot, can you make incremental changes? Can you do this over time so that eventually it becomes a big change? I'm a big fan of both revolution and evolution. I think both of them have their place, but for an overnight success, it's almost constant revolution. And constant revolution to me has a price. You have to pay that price. If you are willing to pay that price, if you are willing to get that heart stent, if you are willing to do what it takes, and I don't know what the price is, then go for it. What I'm saying is that I guess I grew up differently. I'm an iconoclast, probably a super iconoclast in many ways. I believe in the data that is presented before me. I don't believe necessarily what people put on Facebook and other places. And the data shows me that successful people are only successful on stage. Off stage, they are still struggling. They still have many aspects of their lives and many aspects of their business that they need to tidy up every single day. What we need to do is think of business and life like a mountain range. You climb one mountain, you see there are many more to climb. It's better not to run up that mountain. It's better to enjoy the journey, knowing that you're headed up just one peak. And sure enough, there will be many more to follow. There's a price to pay for everything, and you have to decide your price. We've decided our price, and it's 3 times our expenses. We look at the travel, the food, the vacations, we add it all up, we put in some chaos expenses, and then we multiply by 3. One part of it goes into taxes, the second goes into the bank, the third we get to keep. It's not a very complex system. It allows us to be who we want to be. This formula may not work for you right away at the start of your business. It's more likely to be like 1/3 goes into taxes and 2/3 goes into expenses. But over time, you'll have enough of extra cash to put away. That's when you'll have all that you've been looking for all of this time. And that's when people will call you an overnight success. That's how you become an overnight success. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. You probably noticed that this podcast was slightly different. Normally, I do like a 3-part podcast, and this one is completely different. For one, I'm recording this at 4:50 a.m. on a Saturday, and I don't work on weekends. But what happened was, in the last couple of days, I got a little tired. And the reason I got tired was I was doing this webinar on strategic goal setting. Now, goal setting seems like a pretty simple topic. I mean, what's there to goal setting? And the simplicity of it, the fact that anyone can take a piece of paper and go, these are my goals, that's what set me off. So it took me almost a month. You cannot imagine how many drafts I went through, scrapping them, trying to get to this point where I could put together something that was workable. And then I decided to do a webinar. Now, I had no idea how bad the reputation of webinars are. I thought of a webinar as just a means of communicating through slides, just like you would do in a presentation on stage. And I love presentations. I love slides. And when you watch the webinar, you have to pay for it, of course. It's not free. But if you watch the webinar, you will see how much effort and how it seems almost like a movie instead of slide, blah, 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 slide, blah, blah, blah. Well, all of this takes time and lots of cartoons and lots of humor and stuff like that. And information that's usable and gives you an insight into why at Psychotactics we have done so well for the past 17 years. I mean, you look online at lots of people, and yes, they're successful, but are they taking the breaks? Are they enjoying their life? I don't know, and I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know. But I can tell you that we have, that we take 3 months off. we take our weekends off, except on days like this where I show up, because after the webinar, I was a bit wiped out on Thursday and Friday. So Saturday morning, I had to do this bit, and I hope you enjoyed it, different as it is. And that's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. But what's the one thing that you can do today? Now, the one thing that we tend to look at is money and fame and customers and stuff. But how about we get more time? Because eventually that's the biggest resource of all. So let's say you're working 5 days a week. Can we get that down to 4.5 days a week? Or can we get that down to 4 days a week? So let's say you're earning, I don't know, $50,000 a year. And now can we get that down to $50,000 in 11 months or in 10 months? Because that represents an amazing sense of progress. It means that you now have time. And in that time, you can read, you can learn, you can create. And that is what causes that leveraged income. And this is the kind of story that you never hear of, because everyone is focused on the more customers and the more everything, instead of how can I have more time? And when you have that time, then you have time to create, then you have time to create that leverage. And that's where the magic is, in the time. One of the reasons why New Zealand was so great for me was simply because I had more time. I would do a job, starting out as a cartoonist. I'd send out an invoice, and then they would send me the money. When I was back in India, and this is just how India works, it's not personal, they would not pay me for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and I'd spend a lot of my time and energy running after the money. So getting to New Zealand was, in effect, my lottery ticket. I had more time, and that's what I suggest you do. Work on how can you do the same thing or similar, earn as much as you're earning right now, and get more time. That should be your first goal for today. And with that, let's go on to what's happening in Psychotactics land. We're headed to Brussels in about 5 weeks from now, but we stop at Singapore, and we're doing a workshop on landing pages. So we're doing a workshop on landing pages in Brussels and Singapore in the month of April. And then we have one in Houston at the end of October. But before we go, we're releasing the seats for the article writing course. Now, a lot of people think, wait a second, this must be something that's done all the time. The last time we did the article writing course live was in 2016. And then I think the last time we did that was in 2014. This is pretty much very intensive. You're in a forum. It's called the toughest writing course in the world. If that doesn't clue you in, then nothing will. Essentially, you're writing, you're learning to write, you're turning your sort of inability or frustration at writing into a skill. Within 3 months, you're able to write magazine quality articles. And you can see this for yourself. David Green, one of our clients, he's a good friend now as well. And he wrote an article. He's a guy who deals with mortgages. And he went and wrote an article about wine the other day, just to help his daughter. So it gives you that mastery, that fluency. It's like an artist that says, I can draw a dog just as easily as an elephant as a dinosaur. And it allows you to write articles that are so good that not only can you write them in your own field, but you can write them in any field should you choose to do so. And that's what the article writing course does for you. And there are 2 versions of it. One is the live version, which is where I supervise you and I get in there like 100 times a day. And this is done through a forum. Now, that's the live version. And then you have the home study version, which is when you study it by yourself. So you want to mark these dates because the 6th and 7th of April. On the 6th of April, we open the seats for the live version, and we only have 25 seats. We don't do 200. We don't do 50. We don't do 26. We do 25. So 6th of April, first 5,000 BC members get preference. On the 7th of April, we go to the psychotactics list if there are seats left. However, that's the live version. If you just want to do the home study version, then it's the 12th of April. So these are the dates, 6th, 7th, and 12th of April for the article writing course. If you want to just look at what's happening or what you could possibly learn, there's also the goodies, and this is at psychotactics.com, AW goodies. So that stands for article writing goodies. So AW goodies, psychotactics.com/AW goodies, and I think you'll enjoy it. Other than that, I would encourage you to join us in 5000 BC. It's a great place. It's for introverts. I'm the extrovert. You ask a bunch of questions and I give you the answers. Plus there's lots of information, but the information that you're really interested in is the information that you're really interested in. And that's what you ask and that's what you get. And I don't know if there's a better system than that. And about the webinars, we are going to do more webinars. And what surprised me was the reaction I got on Facebook when I announced that I'd done my first webinar. Well, it wasn't structurally or technically my first webinar, but the first webinar that we hosted. And people go, not you as well. And I was surprised because I'm like, what? A webinar is just information. But a lot of people see webinars as just this pushy stuff where you get sucked into some funnel. These webinars are not like that. These webinars are where you learn stuff and you learn it really well. And that's what the goal setting webinar was all about. It was about strategy. It was how we go about our stuff and how you too can become an overnight success by working strategically. So that's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. And I think it's almost time for a cup of tea and then some coffee. Bye for now and see you in 5000 BC.